Shout out Sean Farbs. Let me know how to say it in the chat there, Sean. I appreciate you, dog. He says, keep it going, bro. I plan to. Wait a second. That news might have broken while I was on the show. Yep, Oklahoma versus West Virginia has been postponed. This news is dropping while I am on the show. Saturday's game will be rescheduled for December 12th due to COVID issues within the Sooners program. This is news to me. Make sure that I get this while we are going on air. So the upshot is here. The Big 12 announced Saturday's game between Oklahoma and West Virginia has been postponed until December 12th. The Sooners said Wednesday they have temporarily paused team activities, quote, due to recent positive COVID-19 tests and contact tracing. West Virginia Athletic Director Shane Lyons commented on the situation, saying, I am disappointed for both teams who have worked extremely hard in their preparation for this weekend's game. We will now look forward to honoring our seniors and hosting the Sooners on December 12th. That game was supposed to be in Morgantown, West Virginia, and there's all sorts of, implications from that cancellation. Among them is Oklahoma's spot in the college football playoff. Brian Graves, thank you for correcting me. It's not Christian Williams for Alabama. It's Christian Harris for Alabama. Also, check out Brian's channel. He does really great work, and I enjoy him. So, Oklahoma versus West Virginia basically rules out the possibility, I think, of Oklahoma putting together a consistent resume for the college football playoff selection committee, which is a thing that I want to get into. But if that game that is rescheduled on December 12th gets played, they also have an opportunity to be one of the last regular season games of note being played on a weekend where you might be able to influence the college football playoff selection committee, which really gets us right into a great spot where we get to talk about what is likely to happen outside the top 10. Because if you paid attention to the rankings last night, you'll see there are some undefeated teams and there are some good teams ranked between that 10 and 20 spot. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this as an angle is because in 2014, Ohio State started out as the number 16th ranked team in the playoff rankings initially. Now, they were a 6-1 squad. Oklahoma is obviously a 6-2 squad. But I believe that if you're a one-loss team or you don't have any losses on the resume and you're just starting your season like a USC, right? Or even a Coastal Carolina or a BYU, you have an opportunity here to really make a name for yourself. If anybody stands to gain something from Oklahoma's game versus West Virginia being postponed, it might actually be BYU, provided BYU is able to get a game scheduled between now and their next one against San Diego State on December 12th. Because we heard from Gary Barta last night, who is the Iowa State athletic director and the chairman for the selection committee for the playoff rankings. And he basically said, we need their schedule to be a little bit stronger. The Boise State team that they beat that was ranked inside the AP top 25 was also down with COVID issues. So they didn't get a full strength Boise State team. And that is the toughest team that they played on their schedule. And while Zach Wilson and the boys might actually want to go out and play somebody, it's very clear to us that their administration does not. Kalani Sitake was really getting incensed in front of Reese Davis on the Playoff Rankings show about the idea that BYU was running from Washington. I tend to believe that they were running from Washington because whoever is making the schedule is running from Washington. Doesn't really matter whether or not your football team wanted to play Washington, because if you leave it up to the kids, they would have not just played Washington, they'd play Alabama, they'd play Ohio State, they'd play Notre Dame, and they'd play Clemson. That's how the kids would schedule themselves. It's the adults who want to make sure they make, one, some money, and two, play games they can win. That makes sure that Washington game does not happen. Whether or not you want to hide behind the term protocol or not, right? I believe in protocol, and I want you to follow it. But make that the issue. Say that you don't want to follow the Pac-12 protocol. Don't say that we didn't like the way that the game was being structured. No, dog. Just go up there to Seattle and get your head kicked in or kick in ahead. Because when you say anytime, any place, anywhere, that's exactly what that means. It means travel to Seattle and play Washington. That's what that means. You're also trying to push a Heisman candidate in front of us. You're trying to tell us that Zach Wilson deserves to be among the best players, not just the best quarterbacks, the best players in all of college football. And I can't see it with the schedule you played. Like, you got Western Kentucky and North Alabama and Navy on your schedule. And that's how you're trying to tell us that this goes for you. You're trying to tell us that that scheduling matters, and it doesn't. Because if that mattered, we'd be talking about Coastal Carolina. We'd be talking about Marshall. We'd be talking about Cincinnati. We're talking about BYU because there are a number of people that sincerely want BYU to be considered for one of these playoff spots, and also believes that BYU is misranked at number 14 and that they ought to be a top 10 team, especially when you take into account that Georgia's number 9 as a 2-loss team. But just for the giggles, dog, I'm going to pull up what BYU's schedule is and go game by game here, because I think all of this ought to matter, and I think all of this ought to play into how we talk about that team, who is 9-0, right? They are 9-0. I want to stress that. I get that. I also get that when you ain't played nobody, it's easy to say that you are 9-0. It's easy to say, hey, we dropped 66 on an FCS team. Like, we care. Like, I don't care about you playing North Alabama. So the first team they played, obviously, Navy. Navy had not tackled anybody at all, even each other, before that game started. And they're trying to tell us that, that game ought to mean something to the rest of us. Make sure I get the score correct of that game. Trying to make sure I get that score correct. Hold up. Come on now. Thought I could talk through this, but apparently I cannot. Make sure I pull this thing up. Go to FBS schedule right quick. No, just go to BYUCougars.com. There we go. So they got the game postponed against Army. They play Navy. They beat Navy 55-3. Then they play Troy, beat them 48-7. Then they play La Tech, beat them 45-14. All three teams that we don't care about when we're talking about the college football playoff. Homecoming is UTSA, and they get a game from the Roadrunners that they win 27-20 in Provo. They beat Houston 43-26. Decent team, not a great team. Texas State 52-14. Western Kentucky 41-10. Boise State 51-17. And now North Alabama 66-14. So your best two wins are Houston, Boise State, or UTSA, depending on how you want to define that. I can't get behind that, but I see how you can. And I think we have an opportunity here. If BYU is able to schedule one of these teams that lost a game that is ready to go, like, say, Tulsa, perhaps, right? They need a game. Or Cincinnati, perhaps, because they lost the game against Temple this weekend. Maybe we're talking about something. Maybe we're on to something that's worthwhile. But right now, I need them to play a good Pac-12 team, or a good American team, or a good whomever, because it seems like American and Pac-12 are the only ways you got to go, because the Big 12 is playing a conference schedule, SEC is playing a conference schedule, ACC is playing a conference schedule, Big 10 is playing a conference schedule. You really got to go and see if you can get Washington, if you can get Oregon, you can get USC, you can get Arizona State. You want to get one of these teams that's ranked inside the college football playoff, though. And knowing that Tulsa's there at 25 and has an opportunity, I think you really need to think about that and give that your time.